This is the first time since E3 2018 when they did a deep dive into Torna, where we have a significant amount of new pre-release information for an upcoming Xenoblade game, so I hope you're ready for a great big long analysis. A few things before we start. First off, I have no idea how I successfully predicted a bunch of elements of Future Connected in February 2019, 8 months before Definitive Edition was even revealed. Maybe Takahashi watches my videos. That is the only explanation I can think of, other than, I don't know, maybe I and the developers are just on similar wavelengths, but I don't have any insider information. I wish I did. It's either a strange coincidence, or some people are thinking some pretty similar things in my head and over in Monolith's offices in Japan. Secondly, I'm going to go through the entire direct presentation as well as a few other pieces of material from a non-spoiler for Xenoblade 1 lens from the beginning. After that, I'm going to go back through again, talking about things related to spoilers, covering the entire Xenoblade series, so you can watch only the first part if you have not yet played Xenoblade 1 and are going into it blind for Definitive Edition. And lastly, the most obvious thing that Definitive Edition has changed over the original game is the graphics, and unlike last time when we only got a few shots, I'm not going to go over every single graphical change every time we get a new picture or a new area. Just assume that whenever I talk about something in a scene, or if I just don't talk about a specific scene at all, just assume that a sentence saying, "The graphics are very much improved over the original Wii game," is implicit every single time, because I think it's kind of redundant to say it for every single shot. As for the characters, they all look more or less exactly how I expected them to, based off of the 3 characters we got in the reveal trailer. It is worth mentioning, though, that if you compare Shulk, Rhine, and Fiora to that trailer, their models in this presentation are noticeably better than they were then. So, if you didn't like how they looked compared to the originals back then, well, tough luck, because the rest of the characters got the exact same kind of treatment, but at least they are better versions of the design you don't like compared to the original trailer for the game. One thing I will say is that there are basically no generic NPCs visible in any of the footage we've got, so it's very possible that they have not received as well of a glow-up as the main characters did. That's just a typical thing for remasters and remakes, so I wouldn't be surprised, but just keep that in mind if you see an NPC not looking as good as the main cast. The only thing we've really got is this one image of Colony 9, and it's kind of hard to tell just because there are NPCs, but they all are pretty small. Of course, I'm going to go straight from that graphics disclaimer to talking about the visuals of a scene, because it opens up with the intro cutscene and the battle between Bionis and Mechanis. This is very noticeably pre-rendered, as it shifts from the 2 titans fighting to them being dead eons later, which isn't a particular surprise. I'm pretty sure the original was pre-rendered too. But what is noticeable is the fact that these Bionis and Mechanis models, as well as the skybox and just this entire set piece, might go back a lot longer than you think. Because the art book for the original Wii release of the game has renders for the 2 titans that bear a striking similarity to the way they look in this cutscene. So I'm guessing that they just had these extremely high quality models around and only now had a reason to use them for something other than really nice looking renders. It's also worth noting that with the exception of the Future Connected segment, which makes sense because it's completely new content, every piece of dialogue in the trailer is taken directly from the original game, so I think we can reasonably assume that every scene that has dialogue that was voiced in the original game will reuse that voice acting, and the only new voice acting will be from the epilogue, and if they add anything new into the main story, like voicing heart-to-heart or brand new cutscenes. For the most part, we really can just gloss over the next minute and a half or so of footage from the title showing up to the release date showing up, because all it is snippets of cutscenes with dialogue played over them, and there's not really much else to analyze since they are the exact same cutscenes from the original game, just with better graphics. It does do a very good job of showing off the fact that not only are the faces more detailed, but they can also emote more if you just compare any shot where a character is making a strong emotion in the definitive trailer to what it looked like in the original game, and it's very easy to see that the motion blur that was present in both Xenoblades X and 2, but almost completely absent in the original game, has been added to the scenes here. Other than that, it is pretty much the exact same scenes in the exact same locations with the exact same characters, but with better graphics. There is one exception to that though, because one character did get a slight redesign beyond just adapting to the art style of Definitive Edition, and that is Alvis. In the original game, the thing attached to his necklace was a key, but in Definitive Edition, it has been changed to a gold-bordered red charm in the same shape as the Zohar from Xenosaga, and because it's located on his chest, it also bears a striking resemblance to the core crystals of the two Aegis blades, Malos and Pyra/Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and that is all I'm gonna say about that. After the cutscene montage, when the Future Connected segment starts, the background music changes, so I think now is a good time to talk about the soundtrack of Definitive Edition. The trailer itself states that some of the music has been re-recorded, but if you look at the official Nintendo of America YouTube channel upload of the trailer, the description states that Definitive Edition boasts more than 90 remastered music tracks. This is very interesting because the OST for the original game had exactly 91 tracks on it, including one that was never used in the game itself. So, my best guess for this is that every single track in the game was, at worst, remastered, where if it used samples, then they would use higher quality samples, maybe the composers went in and tweaked some of the instrumentation or something, and in addition to that, some of the tracks were also recorded with live instruments, and that version was used, because as far as I know, only the ending theme of Xenoblade 1, and maybe the title's theme too, probably that as well, were recorded with live instruments, and everything else was using samples. But that's not all, because it seems like Future Connected is going to pull a Torna and add a few new tracks into the mix. Firstly, we know this because the Future Connected segment of the trailer plays a brand new song, so there you go, but also because of the hidden song that you've probably seen floating around, which is a bit more difficult to talk about. The Japanese website for the game has a lot more content on it than any other region I could find, and I'm just gonna put this cool zoom-in shot because that's not from any cutscene of the game. They did that just as an intro to the world section of the website, and it's really cool looking. But in addition, it has a music player on it, and it will let you play about a minute-long segments of the new versions of Engage the Enemy and Gower Plain, both of which were featured in the trailer. If you dig into the HTML and find the URL for these files, you can go and download them, but they end with a BGM0 number.mp3. So one of them is BGM01 and the other is BGM02. But what happens if you put BGM03? Well, that is a file that exists and will give you a song that is brand new and not accessible on the website. The Japanese website has several tabs on it that have not been opened yet, including the one for Future Connected, so it looks very much like this is going to be playable later on when they add more info about the epilogue, and that is going to be a music theme that plays during Future Connected. We don't know what plays for what, but the trailer theme seems to be very calm and relaxing. It reminds me a lot of the Tornan Titan theme from Torna the Golden Country, so that is probably going to be the daytime theme for the Bionis shoulder area, because we now know as a fact from dialogue that the area Future Connected takes place in is going to be Bionis shoulder. So my guess would be, since the new theme seems all funky and upbeat and stuff, and sounds sort of similar to the Torna main battle theme, that it is going to be the main battle theme for Future Connected, but don't quote me on that. We'll probably find out later on when the Japanese site updates with more info. As for any other potential new songs, I'm just going to assume Future Connected is going to do the exact same thing Torna did. So, firstly, if what I thought was the Bionis Shoulder Day theme is in fact that, there's probably going to be a night theme to go with it. Any other brand new areas will have unique themes to go with them. Any returning areas will either directly reuse or remix the theme from that area in the base game. And while most if not all cutscene themes will be reused from the base game, the final boss will get a unique battle theme that may or may not be a remix of something else. It will probably also get a unique title theme and a unique ending theme, which will be vocal and sung by the same woman who sung Beyond the Sky. I believe Japanese fans have actually dug up a tweet by hers suggesting that she was in the studio at a time that would have made sense to be recording something for this game. So either she did a new cover of Beyond the Sky, which I believe she actually did for one of her own personal albums at one point, which is pretty cool, or she's recording something brand new. With all the music talk out of the way, let's actually get into the future connected stuff. Now, I'm not a Bionis shoulder expert. I haven't been able to put a good enough mental map together from watching other people's videos. No one's really made a map of it, and I never hacked the game myself to look at it, but from what I can tell, most of the level structure from the original Wii version of the shoulder remains intact. The visuals have obviously been upgraded to fit with Definitive Edition, and it looks like some new areas have been added. First off, one of the weird wing structures has been cut in half in order to put Alchemoth in, and the Seal Tower Island was added, but it also does look like, in one shot of the Telethia flying, that a new section with a different colored grass and a river running through it has been added as well, because in the original version of the shoulder, there were only 2 rivers and they were very short, much straighter than the one we see here, and not located in this position relative to the rib structure. I think the lower door there, it seems like it's just a doorway that you can use to go inside that little cliff and climb up to the top. I think that opens onto a very small platform that basically is just a cliff dropping off into the void, so it does seem like this new river area that Telethia is flying through has been added for Future Connected. We do have to back up a bit though, because first off we see Shulk and Melia, but I'm not going to talk about that yet, because before the Telethia flies past them in a manner very reminiscent of that part where you step out into Primordia in X for the first time, which is a nice callback, it also flies past something very special. An enemy model on the Bionis shoulder. Now I know the Telethia is probably that too, but you know, there was no enemy data, no NPC data for the original unused map in the Wii version, so the only moving models you'd ever really see in it were the party members you hacked in. So it's nice to see that, yeah, this is definitely something that lives here naturally, and then of course the Telethia is doing Telethia things. We do see it then fly past Shulk and Melia. They're both in the new outfits we'd seen before, and Shulk is wielding the other Monado-like sword from that first trailer. We now know that this is most likely a replica Monado of his own design, and that he gave Melia a replica Monado version of a staff for her to use. We will also see that they're actually standing on the deck of a crashed Junks, which has crashed in the lake underneath a waterfall that was in the original shoulder. More about that later. We then get a close-up on Alchemoth, which I'm not 100% sure on, but it does look like it's a bit beat up and that some of the glass domes are cracked. This rift, people are saying, oh, it's the Land of Challenge rift, and that will take you to meet Rex and the gang from Xenoblade 2. First off, it doesn't look anything like it, and second off, this is Shulk and Melia doing the exploration, and Fiora was the character who showed up with Shulk, so that doesn't really make much sense. Whatever is behind these rifts is almost certainly connected to another Xeno game in some way, and my guess would be that they'd go with the Xenoblade 2 route, but we don't know exactly what that connection is, and it's probably not that simple. The next shot, though, is more interesting because it shows an enemy on the floor surrounded by some black particles and another rift. I can't tell exactly where this is. I think it's outside the gates to Alchemoth, but I can't be 100% sure. And we're also not sure if Shulk and Melia have just defeated this enemy, if this enemy came in contact with the rift and that did it to it, or if it popped out in that state. This was also the subject of a massive piece of Reddit speculation where people compared it to the model of, I believe, a unique monster from Torna, and figured, ah yes, it uses the same model, so clearly it's the same enemy from Xenoblade 2, and that's what that is. No, this is a Taos enemy, and those are also enemies in Xenoblade 1. Now, just think about this logically. Xenoblade 2, all of its enemies have Switch quality models already. A lot of enemies in Xenoblade 2 were taken from Xenoblade 1. So if you're now remaking Xenoblade 1 in the same engine as 2 and on the Switch, what reason would you have to make new models for the enemies you already have models for? Zero. So this is just a Taos, probably one that lived on Biona's shoulder, or came through the rift from somewhere else on Biona's shoulder or something. This doesn't have to be from another universe. To back my theory up, go back and look at that Armu. It looks exactly the same as the ones in 2. The more interesting thing, though, are the two characters there. Both of them seem to be wielding weapons of some sort, and also they're two Napon we've never seen before. A pink one who I believe is female, and a green one who I believe is male. We don't technically know if these guys are party members or not, but they do appear to be brandishing weapons, and I'm gonna skip around a bit to a screenshot from the Japanese My Nintendo page for the game, because it shows Melia leading the party inside Alchemoth, which does appear to be very beaten up. There's another rift at the top of the big escalator there before the palace, and these two Napon are there and have what I'm guessing is a club and a wand. So it looks like these guys might actually be the brand new party members for Future Connected. Whether or not they fight as a duo, or you have 4 party members at once, or there's just 4 party members unlike Torna where you only had 3, I'm not sure, but it looks like these characters will be playable, and it looks like one of the few things they didn't take from my video was the idea of putting Tyrea in as a playable character. Before hitting the gameplay section, I just want to talk about this piece of key art, because first off, it's amazing. It's my new Twitter wallpaper and desktop wallpaper, but it's got Shulk and Melia wielding their weapons in their new outfits. That's expected. You see the same beaten up Alchemoth in the background. The two Napon are there, basically cementing the fact that they are going to be important characters, although they don't seem to have their weapons there, which is interesting. But the big thing is we get a view of one of the towns, specifically the one that's built around the giant rock. And the giant rock has gotten an overhaul, because not only is it more detailed as expected, but it also has some sort of towery structure stuck in the middle of it. And I'm guessing that if they went out of their way to change it, that's probably going to be very important. Almost resembles the Sheikah Tower from Breath of the Wild, but I'm fairly certain they're not going to put a Botwell reference in the Xenoblade game. The town itself has seen some changes as well. The trees around it are bigger and more in number, the outcropping of rock to the side has been replaced with a bigger building, and the buildings themselves have changed design. They're made out of stone instead of clay, and instead of having a bunch of small windows, they now have fewer, taller windows, which I'm not really sure what that means. Could be anything. I can't really tell if the amount of stories of these buildings has been reduced by that, but the design does change, and they're also a bit more overgrown, suggesting that they're older, but it doesn't seem like these buildings are completely in ruins, or at least they're inhabited again, because the tents and stuff of the market or bazaar or whatever it is underneath the buildings do seem to still be there, suggesting that the area is in fact inhabited, and maybe even these two Napon come from there. There's also this other screenshot, which, while it appears to be completely real, I can't find a single official website that has it, only people who have been sharing it online. It's kind of interesting. I'm guessing it was posted somewhere by mistake, but it was taken down, because the first time I saw it posted by other people was less than a day after the trailer dropped, so it's highly unlikely that someone was able to Photoshop it, so I'm going to assume it's real. It has Melia again leading seemingly the party, there's Shulk to her left, and the weapon of the female Napon to her right, and also some High Entius soldiers behind her. It's likely that they're all grouped together to face down some sort of threat. I don't know if the one guy who doesn't have a helmet on is just an NPC soldier model, which I think he might be, or if he's a completely new character, in which case he might just be a supporting character for this campaign. Regardless, we don't know if these High Entia came from the ruined Alchemoth we saw, or if they joined up with the party at a later time on the shoulder to help fight off some threat related to them. Anyway, that's cool. What's less cool is a notice I found while looking at the Japanese My Nintendo site trying to find that screenshot, because I found something that through Google Translate says the collection mode and amiibo compatible elements that were included in the Xenoblade for new Nintendo 3DS are not included in Definitive Edition. As far as I can tell, that means the model viewer, the jukebox, and the amiibo support won't be in Definitive Edition. That's kinda okay, honestly. They weren't really a big selling point for the 3DS version in the first place, and I would much rather a cutscene theater than any of that stuff. Finally moving on to gameplay, we get some shots of the party just running around various areas. We could see that there's an ether crystal deposit in that one Magna Forest area, suggesting that, yeah, ether crystals are back the exact same way they were before. I'll talk about the map system later, but we can also see from the button prompts on screen that, yeah, the field controls control more or less like Xenoblade 2 did, but the one interesting thing is the auto run mapped to up on the D-pad. It was never that in any other game, which is interesting, but what's more interesting is the fact that Xenoblade 1 never had auto run, X and 2 both did, X and 2 used this engine, now 1 is on this engine, so it makes sense that that would be added. We also see that the thing in the bottom right hand corner mapped to ZR changes between story and quest at different times, so it's likely that they again went with the Xenoblade 2 approach, where you could set a quest as your active quest and then pull up the requirements for it at any time using ZR, and when you don't have an active quest, it will just tell you what the next story thing is. It's also in some of the shots here that we got our first glimpse of Ricky, and hey, he's not in his default outfit. Charla has a thing on her head, Ryan changes outfits partway through, so yes, changing armor does change your appearance like the original version of the game. It was not taken out like Xenoblade 2 did, so that's nice. Moving on to the battle scene, we learn two things in two completely different directions. First off, the combat system itself seems to be identical to the original game. But second off, the UI is probably the best the series has ever had. The higher resolution over the original Xenoblade 1 means that you can make some elements smaller to free up some clutter on the screen without running into the X situation of you not being able to read anything, and also everything is very clear and sleek looking. There are some additions and quality of life changes too. The enemy's HP tag with the name, level, and all that stuff is now static at the top of the screen like it was in X and 2, instead of hovering above the enemy's head like in the original Xenoblade 1. This will avoid situations where the tag can get stuck off screen, which is bad because you don't know any information about your enemy then. We've also got an eyeball indicator on the Magna X tag there, showing that marking enemies that are vision, auditory, or ether based will probably return. You could see its buffs and debuffs above there, and there will also be a little timer whenever Shulk applies break to it, which is very cool. You can now tell break, topple. I'm assuming for damage over time conditions like poison and burn, there will also be something like that there. Your party members now have an HP bar, which was not present in the original game, believe it or not. It was just a fraction. So that's nice. You can now glance over it and much faster be able to tell exactly how your entire party is doing as a whole. One other screenshot I'll show later also shows that if a party member gets low on HP, the bar will change color, so you can see that too. Everyone in the battle has HP bars above their heads as well, blue for party members, orange and yellow for enemies. One thing that does seem to be removed is the skill bar. There used to be next to the EXP and SP bar that showed how far along the way to learning your next skill you were, so either that was put completely in the menus, or the skill system was overhauled a little bit. You can also see that the art recharges, although the palette itself takes the same form as Xenoblade 1, matches X and 2 a little bit more, where you have to wait for the art to go all the way around the circle to charge up instead of filling up vertically. There are also now two arrows permanently on top and below the talent art icon, and when you're able to run or perform a chain attack, the bottom one will light up green for run and the blue one will light up blue for chain attack, so that's always there so you know what to hit. It seems like instead of having to tab the talent icon over to chain attack, you might just be able to hit up and down while on the center, so that's very nice. Presumably you'd still be able to hit up to return to the center at any time, because that would be a very stupid thing to take out, but I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. We can also see tension arrows going up on the characters, and there is confirmation between all the battle footage and screenshots we have that portraits will change as tension changes, but we haven't seen tension at the extreme high or extreme low, so we don't know if the black clouds or the fire behind the portraits will still show up. We can then see the main menu, which is pretty interesting because its design is completely different and it does look really nice. I like how the title of the menu item you're in is on the Monado, and we've got models for all the active party members and then what looks to be the renders for all the non-active ones. Unfortunately, it seems like there's no 2D official art for the game, which kind of sucks because I really like that. But if we look at the menu items themselves, they are all what you'd expect. Again, this is Xenoblade 1 to the T. Collectibles are there, so it looks like the Collectopedia is back. And the skill tree option is there, as well as still listing what skill tree each character is on. There was an SP bar in the main menu in the original game as well, though, so I don't know. Maybe skill learning was just put completely in the menu and you just have to check every time your character said skill learned after winning a battle. Or maybe they went with a more hybrid Xenoblade 1 and 2 approach, where you have skill trees, you unlock 2 more by doing character-specific quests, and you set one as your active one in order to augment your stats a little bit. That's the same as 1, but like 2, you gain SP after winning a battle, and can go into the menu and spend that to buy skills. Obviously, you'd have to learn each tree in order, instead of passively learning skills, which I never really liked. You could also see that there does appear to be 8 party member slots here, suggesting that it might be possible for another character after the elusive 7 to join. However, in the original game, I'm pretty sure guests showed up in the lower right hand corner, so they're probably going to show up in that 8th slot too, since there is one guest who does travel with the party for a bit after 7 joins, so there would still need to be space for that. Technically, you could put it above the party, but I feel like in the lower right hand corner would make more sense. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a fully new party member added to the game, but it does look like we're getting 2 Napon in Future Connected, so I'm okay with the main game itself being played as straight as possible if you're going to add an entirely new campaign. Moving in, we get a shot of the equipment menu, and when you're in here, the character on the Monado shows up. I'm not entirely sure if that's ever been on any art, but if they actually have characters on the Monado for each menu item, that would be an amazing, amazing attention to detail, and I really like that. As with everything else, the equipment menu looks much sleeker, much nicer, probably a lot easier to navigate, and the equipment system itself seems identical, except for one very big thing. First off, you can set favorite equipment, which is nice. You might even be able to have preset loadouts or something, which would be really cool. But also, underneath the equipment, there's also an appearance menu, meaning fashion gear is back. You can set what gear you have will make your character change their appearance and what will change their stats. So you don't necessarily have to look really ugly because you're wearing the best gear. There is actually a weapon slot under appearance too, which is interesting. It's grayed out, but I'm assuming that's just because Shulk only has one weapon. So you might actually be able to change what weapon you're using too, which would be cool because you could actually have Sharla use her signature rifle after the 2 hours of gameplay where it's actually good. There's also one more hint that there won't be a new party member, because when the player selects the Napal armor, it shows which characters are allowed to equip it and shows all 6 of the people who are currently in the party, with a slot for only 1 more. Now, normally, 7 can't equip a lot of items that other party members can, but glasses can be equipped by everyone, and it looks like every piece of equipment has the exact same setup for its description tag thing, so it looks like unless an 8th party member shows up who can't equip anything that all 7 other party members can, then it looks like we are not getting a new party member in the base game. And then this segment ends just with Shulk jumping off the Great Magna Falls, because who wouldn't? We then get a bit more expansion of Future Connected, showing Junks flying in towards Alchemoth, and then getting shot down by a beam coming out of one of the rifts. So it looks like this is what causes you to crash land in Biona's shoulder and have to take the land route and or find a way to get into Alchemoth when it's still floating up there because you don't have a working flying machine anymore. Although I feel really bad for Junks, because it seems like You just need the specific person piloting it. It looks like only Shulk and Melia are going to the shoulder. Shulk implies that, yeah, we found the capital. There might be people there. Melia, you should probably come because you're the High Entia. So it looks like Shulk was the one piloting it, and apparently he's not as good as piloting it as whoever is normally piloting it, because there's one cutscene where it dodges a lot of bullets in the main game, and it gets shot down by one thing here, so that's pretty funny. But then we also get probably the first or like second cutscene here, right after they crash, where they look like they're, yep, we gotta go exploring. We don't know what's going on. Shulk's glad he brought his replica Monado with him, which is cool. And we also see what seems to be the way the text for the non-cinematic, I'll call them, cutscenes works. In the original game, there were just text boxes popping up as characters did like generic lip flap animations, and there were camera pans. That's what it looks like it is here. So, yeah, we've already seen the other cinematic cutscenes and how they're exactly the same as before, so I'm not too worried that the actual quality of Future Connected is going to falter at all. We do hear some new Shulk dialogue, and it is definitely Adam Howden, so we know as a fact he's returning, but while you can tell that Melia is speaking in the footage, we can't really hear her well enough to know if Jenna Coleman is coming back, or if they had to replace her with a sound-alike for any new content. The official Japanese site for the game also links to 3 unlisted YouTube videos that show off more cutscenes. The first one is just an extended cut of the battle at the beginning. It looks great. The second one is Shulk, Rhine, and Fiora reacting to the Mechon attack on Colony 9, and then Shulk picking up the Monado for the first time. Nothing too interesting about this, other than it's really obvious that Dunban's Japanese voice actor is also Vegeta, and the blood Dunban spits up is slightly smaller and slightly darker. The third one, I would consider spoilers for a brand new player, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's basically when Metalface shows up and Shulk and Rhine's conversation after the attack. Again, nothing too special, nothing showing any additions or anything to the game. It's just more cutscenes in the new engine and new art style. Let's just talk about a couple more screenshots. First off, we've got this one of the Mechon M71 boss battle. Here we can see that it does have little flourishes around the enemy tag showing that it's a boss or unique monster like in the original game, and we can also see that the markings for enemies that will attack in a group are still present, as this one has it around its site type, and we can also see little vision tags around all the tentacles, which is nice because that means that you can turn on and off the hearing vision ether tags for random enemies in the field once again. Either that or they're permanently on, which I don't think would be a very good thing to have. In this fight, you can also see that Ryan's HP is low and his HP bar has changed color, as well as just a few other icons. You could see the chain attack being active because the party gauge is full. It looks like Sharla has maybe Cure Bullet or Shield Bullet on her, and Shulk is currently burned. More importantly though, you can also see in one of the tentacles, Juju is back, so he has not been removed from the game. Now let's look at this shot of the Machina X fight. It's not too interesting, not too many new things. It's also completely in Japanese, so I can't read most of the stuff, but we could see that Rhine has a buff that appears to be haste. It looks like physical defense is down on the enemy. We can see that the little HP bar above its head does have a break icon next to it, and we can also see that talent arts, when they're unavailable, will still charge up in a circular way too, like the normal arts, and not, again, vertically like the talent arts did in the main game. Most interestingly is the little exclamation icon on top of the air slash icon. The first thought would obviously be, oh, this is a little exclamation point that will tell you if you meet the condition for any conditional art, like being to the side of an enemy or to the back of an enemy, or toppling a broken enemy, that sort of thing, things that have extra effects on enemies in certain states, anything like that. That makes a lot of sense, but then you can go to this screenshot of the English version of the Metalface fight, and you'll see the exact same exclamation on backslash when Shulk is definitely not behind him, so I'm not really sure what to make of this. It is very bizarre, especially because if you do go back to the gameplay footage, you'll see that there is a little piece of time where Shulk is right to the side of the Machina X, and there are exclamation points on both slit edge and Air Slash, the two side arts, but they disappear after only a frame or so. So it's really weird, especially because both Shulk and the enemy don't have their positions change. I'm going to be honest with you and say that I have zero idea what these mean. It can't even be soul voices from X because, again, for a couple frames, two arts of different colors are highlighted, and at the time backslash is highlighted, slit edge is also charged, and it's not highlighted at all. So it might just be that this is a position or a condition-based art indicator, but at the time this footage was taken, it wasn't perfect. If we go back to the Metal Face screenshot, though, you'll see another icon, and this one is overworld related. There's a little pinpoint pointing to the location of a heart-to-heart that's a little bit outside of the battle location. It seems like either they didn't turn it off in battle for some reason this time, or even in battle, you'll get icons pointing to certain indicators. And that's not all, because you could see some other quality of life improvements. If you look at this shot that's just the map in Satoral Marsh, you'll see that it brought back Xenoblade 2's thing where you could just make the map bigger by clicking the stick. I'm assuming that's how you do it. But also that there's a path leading from the player to an exclamation point. So it seems like if you have a specific quest with a destination set, like an individual destination, not slay certain enemies, in that case it'll probably just mark off where all those enemies can be found, it will actually draw a path to that location, presumably only if you're in the same area. We can also see from here that the map of Satoral Marsh itself has not changed at all, and that red still means enemy and blue still means NPC. What I can gather from this and a few other shots where the minimap is visible is that they basically just put Xenoblade 2's quest system, which is better, into Xenoblade 1. Except instead of color coding, which is a story related thing and which is a side quest related thing, they did the smarter thing and made a separate icon for story, and then made the red and blue quest things for unaccepted quest and quest objective. So if you see a red exclamation point, it's probably that's where you need to go to accept a quest, and if you see a blue one, it looks like that is an objective for a quest. The only thing that I can be salty about in this entire trailer is, for a split second, in one of the shots of the characters running, you can in fact see an item orb, which means that they're going with a completely random collectible thing from 1 and X and not the set collection points like 2 had, which is kind of unfortunate because I think that that was also better. Obviously, I'm also salty about the fact that the European Special Edition is so much better than the North American one, and that Japan, hey, theirs might not be too great either, but they at least got a soundtrack too. Only reason I'm bringing that up though is because in the promo art for the Special Edition, you can see that the soundtrack steelbook has a render for Shulk's new outfit, which we could see in a bit more detail later, but also Ricky confirming that his default outfit is his original one, and Melia's new outfit as well, which is pretty cool. Obviously, we can't see these renders in super detail, but it's nice to know they exist, and it's also nice to know that the soundtrack CD will bring back the tradition of the original Wii disc of the game by having the hole in the CD be the hole of the Monado. Another bone the Japanese Collector's Edition throws us is samples from the art book. We get 3 sets of 2 pages. And I also like how the long Monado is just a consistent aesthetic choice with this game, because that's what the borders of the pages with the page numbers are, which is pretty cool. The Shulk one shows off 2 renders. One is the one we saw from the original trailer, so that's no big deal. And the second one is a new render of just him alone in his new Future Connected outfit. We then get a brand new set of swimming gear, which includes flippers, swimming gloves, a snorkel, some vest thing, and then, like, compression short swim pants, which is completely different from how swimsuits looked on Shulk in the original game. I'm pretty sure it was just a set of, like, water shoes or moccasins and then regular swim trunks, so either they completely redesigned how the swimsuits look on Shulk, or there is a brand new set of swimwear. Also, Shulk is a lot more shredded than he should be with his job. Like, I know in the original game he was already way too muscular for what he is, but that's pushing it even further. Shulk even seems to be slightly tanner in his epilogue appearance, suggesting that he actually got tan from being outside, so maybe he got more muscular too from doing all his fighting. That makes almost too much sense. On the right page is just concept art for a really cool looking armor set. It's got a big Dark Knight vibe, so I don't know. It just looks cool. The second is concept art for locations. It looks like there's some Machina on the first page, and the second page appears to be Bionis' leg and maybe a little bit of the shoulder as well. The third set is all different drivers for Rein. I can't tell if any of this is new. I think the bottom middle one on the first page is new, and maybe the top middle one as well. The rest do look familiar, but I'm fairly certain all of this concept art is either brand new or wasn't put in the original art book. And that is the big analysis done! That is 6 minutes longer, roughly, than my Torna analysis, and that one had an entire treehouse segment to go off of, so do not underestimate me. But now it is time for the spoiler discussion, because there are some big things to talk about. So, this will now involve spoilers for the entire Xenoblade series, so go away if you don't want that. First off, Alvis is Ontos. I'm mad that people denied it from the beginning. Like, I thought it was pretty well spelled out initially, and I'm honestly kind of annoyed that they had to go and change this design to get people to realize it. Now, obviously, they might have just changed it to make the connection more solidified, but they could have just changed the ending cutscene and had Alvis change his dialogue to say something about, oh, I am one of 3 processors in a computer, instead of just saying he is the computer, and that would have been fine, and that would have been enough, but I guess they have to shove it in our face, and I guess that's his Aegis Core color. Shulk made his replica Monado based off the Monado 1, which I think is kind of funny, because that was Zanza's Monado, not his own one, so maybe Alvis's necklace will change color based on what Monado is currently being used by Shulk. Like, it might change blue like the Monado 3, or maybe the Monado 3 will be red. That might be another retcon they'll do. So, yeah. Obviously, they're going to touch on the fact that Alvis is Ontos. They're probably going to change the Birth of the Universe cutscene to more resemble the Xenoblade 2 version. That's fine. Alvis will probably acknowledge the fact that he is one of 3. That's no big deal. I was perfectly expecting that. The big thing, though, is, you know, the whole epilogue thing, because I'm fairly certain the original story will not be changed in any significant way. If they do anything, they will add, or at least make cutscenes for, the one short story that detailed how Fiora was able to get her Ham's body back, which was basically Melia knew of some Hyantia technology that would regenerate it in about 6 months. Fiora didn't want to take it because she wanted to fight with everyone for the final battle. It would have been some nice bonding between Melia and Fiora, maybe Melia getting more closure on the whole liking Shulk thing. But anyway, that's why there's a 6-month time skip between beating the boss and the actual final cutscene. They'll probably explain that either just in text maybe, or just a small new cutscene, but what about Future Connected? All we know is that it takes place after the main game. We don't know at all if it's during that 6-month time skip or after it, so that's a distinct possibility. I don't think this is the story of how Fiora got recovered, because that was relevant before the final boss. So it can't really be that, but it might take place during that 6-month time skip. We know as a fact that the reason that Shulk and Melia go to the Bionis shoulder is because Alchemoth might be there, and that means people might be there. Shulk went to investigate, probably because he's the strong dude, and Melia is coming because it's Hyantia. So what does this mean? First off, they did not need to change what the new world looks like. People were saying, oh no, the epilogue can't be post-game because the Bionis is still there. Well, newsflash, you didn't pay attention, because if you look at the final cutscene, you'll see that the upper body of the Bionis, the head, and both shoulders is still there. It's just like off the shore of the island in the new world. So Bionis' shoulder still being there makes perfect sense. Bionis itself wasn't completely destroyed, so there's that. Alchemoth obviously would be the one big retcon, but that makes sense. It also makes complete sense now that it's not in the same place relative to the Bionis where it should be if it was back up in Earth C, so that's all cool. But yeah, Future Connected. What does that even mean? Well, first off, based on the screenshot of going inside a ruined Alchemoth, and just the fact that there was another screenshot with Hyantia, and the fact that it's Alchemoth, this will probably be some more closure for Melia's character arc. I don't know what it's going to be beyond that. Maybe the villain will even be Tyrea. If she's not playable, she could still be the villain. That would make some sense. It might be Melia coming to terms, like ending officially the royal line of the Hyantia or something like that, discovering some more secrets. We do see a Telethia there, so they might even be going there, or one of their goals might become getting rid of the rest of the Telethia, so that would be interesting. But the rifts, what about the rifts? The name Future Connected highly suggests that this will connect to the future of the Xeno series, or that Xenoblade 1's future is connected to another Xeno game, probably Xenoblade 2. This might somehow establish the Xenoblade 1 and 2 worlds coming together. People are also saying that the rift is the same rift that the other half of Klaus is in, and that's how Rex will hear Shulk's voice, but this makes zero sense if you think about it at all, which apparently people don't, because, like, first off, Klaus is gone at this point. Second off, the voice heard through the Klaus rift was heard because Shulk was talking to Zanza, who's the other half of Klaus, and also it was the thing Shulk said as he was finishing off the final boss, and we know this takes place after the final boss, so it can't be that. It might just be some other connection. I'm guessing it would just be like, oh, stronger connection to Xenoblade 2. Maybe like, this is the end scene of Xenoblade 2, where the time between the two universes is different if they're not in the same universe. And it's like, this has something to do with the reawakening of Pyra and Mithra or something. This might have something to do with wormholes. Siren has wormhole powers. So, what if this is something to do with the attacks Rex wormholed away to dodge? They're just coming out of Alchemoth for some reason. That would be kind of interesting. Another thing to bring up is Alchemoth does get trashed through the main story too after the Telethia transformation. So, this ruined Alchemoth, it might just be the same ruined Alchemoth from the main story, just with different enemies and different story stuff. So there's that. My guess would be the plot initially revolves around first trying to figure out what the rifts are, but also trying to figure out how to get to Alchemoth now that you can't fly. That's probably what the new Seal Island is. And yeah, I'm running out of things to say, but I think that's good. I think we're good. A 47-minute analysis is pretty good, so thank you for watching. Melia looks great, by the way. Like, I don't know if I need to articulate it that much, but Melia best girl, and Melia new outfit is doing a lot of things. She looks great. The people are even making comparisons to that and Mithra's Smash outfit because it's white, it's got the same like vertical line pattern, and it also has the black leggings, so I don't think that's the intention, but I don't know. It looks cool. The game looks cool. I can't wait. Also, Melia might get Monado arts because she has a replica Monado staff now. My idea might just be like Monado art versions of Elemental Burst. Like Elemental Burst is bigger, and if you fire off an Elemental in Burst, it'll be a Monado version of the Elemental that has the bonus effect of some Monado art. I don't know. Will Shulk even have Monado arts after the end of the game? Because he gave up his Monado. I'm not sure. He might just be using a replica Monado to fight because that's what he's used to. But, I mean, Enchant would be completely useless. And we also know that it is a separate standalone thing like Torna that can be played without beating the main story first. So, it might even play completely differently. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait for more info about that. But I'm done with talking about the info we got because my throat is sore. Good night. This is Luxin signing off. Like, comment, and subscribe, please. This took a long time.